It's summertime, Middlesbrough's season is over, and silly season is in full flow, particularly if you're looking at social media. Middlesbrough's hopes of signing players early on in the summer transfer window, it's always a hope from supporters that Middlesbrough will just crack on to get all of their business done before the players return for pre-season duty in July, but that is simply not how it works. Middlesbrough's players at the moment currently off enjoying themselves, sunning themselves, enjoying a relaxing time after what was a pretty full-on effort last season. Of course, we made it all the way to the playoff final with a fair bit of drama in the mix as well, with Spygate and everything that brought. A couple of our players are away on international duty at the World Cup, but for everyone else, it's time to relax and make sure that they are ready and raring to go when pre-season rolls around. Now, as much as fans are sometimes a little bit frustrated that no deals are done early on, there is a degree of patience needed as far as supporters are concerned. Middlesbrough's recruitment team will be putting in the work at the moment, but of course, the players and everyone else don't return back until next month, until July. That's not just the case for Middlesbrough, that's the case for other clubs as well. And so that's the sort of time when you can really start to see transfer dealings coming off. Now, despite what you might be reading on social media, if you are to read those in the know accounts, some of them will be suggesting that Middlesbrough are closing in on a number of new players over the last few weeks. Those rumours have really started to heat up during that time. But here, I'm going to go through those rumours and reveal what the truth is behind Middlesbrough's transfer plans and what we're actually going to be looking to do before going into the new season. Here we go. First off, let's start with Hayden Hackney, the player that Middlesbrough fans will be wanting to know everything about this summer. He's a player who has been absolutely stunning for Middlesbrough over the last couple of campaigns, and it is widely expected that he's going to be leaving the club this summer. Now, it did appear at one stage that was going to be a deal that was done really, really early on. More than around about a dozen clubs in the Premier League have all been interested in signing Hayden Hackney. Everton were the club that were leading that list, and a report from The Athletic was suggesting that Everton were the preferred option for Hayden Hackney. Now, they came in, they were looking to do a deal for around about £10 million, which was never going to happen. Middlesbrough hoping to get a deal done for maybe £20 to £25 million, but Middlesbrough were claiming that they were happy to keep hold of Hayden Hackney if their valuation wasn't met. Now, as you may know, Hayden Hackney has just a year left on his contract at the Riverside Stadium, so that would mean that he'd be available for nothing next summer. But Middlesbrough clearly keen to keep hold of him and make sure that they are getting the best valuation possible for a player who is really their prized asset. Now, a couple of offers have gone in from Everton. There was one which was around about £10 million, was another which was a little bit higher. That clearly didn't meet Middlesbrough's valuation because that didn't go anywhere. And it did seem like at one point that was a deal that was very, very close to getting done, but that seems to have gone a little bit cold now. As I was mentioning before in the introduction, that could be down to a number of factors. It could be down to Everton putting in the work to look at other signings. It could be down to players being away on holiday, that sort of thing. I mean, I know it sounds like a mundane thing, but it is these kind of things that do slow down deals at this point. Players are away, agents are away, people like sporting directors are away on holiday as well. I mean, it is really when you get into July when everyone starts to come back, everyone starts to click into gear ahead of the new football season, and then these deals start to get done, really. So I was a little bit surprised that Hackney is still a Middlesbrough player, because it did seem at one point like this was going to happen very, very quickly. It did seem like this was going to be a signing that would be done so early in the summer, with Everton clearly not looking to mess around at that point. But no offer has been accepted from Middlesbrough. Middlesbrough very keen to hold on to the player, and as it stands at the moment, Hayden Hackney is still a Boro player until that valuation's met. Now, there are a couple of other clubs who are interested in signing him as well. Nottingham Forest were in there, Crystal Palace were in there. As far as I'm aware, Everton are still Hayden Hackney's preferred destination, so it's not to say that this move isn't going to happen. It just means it has gone a little bit quiet over the last couple of weeks, which wasn't really expected, but certainly his move away from the Riverside Stadium is one that I expect to happen at some point, probably in the next month, certainly before the start of the new season. He is a top quality player, someone who deserves to be playing in the Premier League. And although Middlesbrough are going to be playing hardball to try and get the best deal possible, it does feel inevitable that he will be moving on at some point this summer. Of course, as fans start to look towards the new season, people start to think about players that might be coming into the club, players that Middlesbrough might be targeting. And of course, there's always a few rumours that start to materialise around this time of season. They call it silly season for a reason, and that is because a lot of these transfer rumours are absolute nonsense. Now, I'm not even going to go into them by name. There's probably been close to 10 players linked with Middlesbrough already this summer, players that a lot of fans probably haven't heard of, players that Middlesbrough have supposedly expressed an interest in, players that Middlesbrough are supposedly closing in on signing. But to ruin that for everybody, as it stands at the moment, Middlesbrough are not close to signing anyone, and that is okay. As I said before, June is a month when people are away on holiday. Players are away. They're enjoying some time away with their friends and family. Club officials, they're away as well. Of course, clubs aren't making decisions on their players typically until we get into July anyway. Clubs wait for their players to come back for pre-season. They like to take a look at them during pre-season. That's when managers start to take a look at their squad, how it might be shaping up, who might be in their plans, who might be out of their plans, who might be available for a transfer, who might be available for a loan. That typically comes as we move into August, once pre-season's done and dusted and people's squads start to take shape. So it is often a waiting game, particularly for clubs in the Championship. We're not in a position where we've got a big transfer kit here. We can just go out and sign the targets that we want to sign. Often it is a case of being patient, waiting for the market to get moving and see what opportunities arise as the summer goes on. Now, as I said, there has been a number of players linked with a move to Middlesbrough this summer. I'm not going to go through them all by name, and I'm not going to single out any publications or anything like that, because I don't want to discredit the work of other people or anything like that. But as it stands at the moment, Middlesbrough are not close to making any signings. It doesn't mean that there aren't signings to be done. It doesn't mean that Middlesbrough haven't got a lot of work to do this summer in terms of bringing in new players. But as it stands at the moment, we're recording this on the 23rd of June, there are no players who are close to joining Middlesbrough as it stands at the moment. There's been a lot of talk around those players coming in. There's also been a lot of talk around players leaving the club, which is a different matter, which I'll get onto in just a second. But as it stands at the moment, no players are close to coming into the club, and that is not a problem, really, as far as Middlesbrough are concerned. Kim Hellberg has got some really talented players in his squad. He knows what he wants to do. He will be taking a look at other players when the club reports back for pre-season next month, and then of course they will be looking to bring in some new players through the course of June, July, August as well. Hopefully by the end of August we'll have the squad that Kim Hellberg wants that can compete for promotion this season. But as it stands at the moment, no players are close to joining Middlesbrough at the moment, and that isn't a problem. That isn't a reason for supporters to be anxious. It just means that people are away enjoying their holiday, and then when the club do report back for pre-season, typically that is when things start to ramp up. That's the point when plans start to come into play. That's when negotiations tend to become a little bit more active, and that's when you might start to see a little bit of movement and a few players coming through the door at the Riverside Stadium. But as it stands at the moment, no new signings and nothing particularly close as it stands at the moment. When I'm talking about incoming signings, of course, one of the players who has been linked with a move to Middlesbrough is Alan Brown. Now, the Northern Echo were suggesting at the end of last season, of course, Alan Brown was on loan from Sunderland. He spent the season with us, and it was suggested that he could be a player that Middlesbrough might look to sign on a permanent basis. Of course, with Hayden Hackney's situation, the fact that he's very likely to move on, it does mean that we are going to be looking to sign midfield players this summer. And Alan Brown, of course, was very, very impressive last season. He was a really, really consistent performer. He added real experience. He played in central midfield. He also played out on the right-hand side. He played as a right winger. He played as a right back at times. A really, really good player who offered a lot to Kim Hellberg's side last season. Now, it seems like this is a move which isn't going to come off. Certainly not yet, anyway. He's a player who, as it stands at the moment, is not going to be a target for Middlesbrough on a permanent basis. Now, to add a little bit of context to this, he's still under contract with Sunderland, so he's on decent money there. Not eye-watering money. He's not on Matt Target levels of money in terms of his salary, but he is on a decent amount. He signed for Sunderland from Preston when Sunderland were in the Championship, so his wages then won't have been particularly astronomical, but as is the way that Sunderland do their contracts, every player in their squad, I believe, got a promotion pay rise when they got promoted to the Premier League last summer. That includes Alan Brown. So as it stands at the moment, he is on Premier League wages, and that means that, of course, any club that wants to sign him will have to satisfy what he's looking for. Now, Alan Brown is under contract. He's under no real pressure to take a reduction in wages. Yes, he may want to play regular first team football. It's very unlikely that he's going to be part of Sunderland's plans, so he is going to have a decision to make. But as it stands, Middlesbrough are unlikely to be wanting to pay the amount of money that Alan Brown will be looking for if he was to make a permanent move. We do have a lot of business to do this summer. There's a lot of players that we do need to sign. And I think a central midfielder, someone who's as experienced as Alan Brown, I don't think he's the sort of player that we will be wanting to really break the bank on in terms of wages, not to mention a transfer fee, because there will be a transfer fee that needs to be paid there. So it's one to keep an eye on. He's a player that obviously Middlesbrough like. He's a player that obviously Kim Hellberg likes. But as it stands at the moment, this is the permanent transfer, which doesn't look like it's going to be coming off, and Middlesbrough will be looking elsewhere for midfield reinforcements. Now, Middlesbrough's need for midfielders is pretty clear this summer. We've already mentioned about Hayden Hackney and the fact that it's highly likely that he's going to be moving on. Alan Brown has gone back to Sunderland after his loan deal came to an end, and then Middlesbrough have also made a decision on two players who've come to the end of their contract in Alex Gilbert and Sammy Silvera. Now, both of those players, when Middlesbrough released their retained list, both of those players were listed as being released, but at the same time it was reported that there were discussions going on about both of those players and the fact that Middlesbrough could look to keep them on next season. Now, of course, those talks were likely to hinge on playing time. Both of those players played a bit part role last season under Kim Hellberg. They got a little bit of game time, but I think as Middlesbrough are looking to improve and grow, and as Kim Hellberg looks to bring in some fresh faces next season, it was always very, very unlikely that either of those players were going to be getting a substantial amount of game time. Now, of course, if they were happy to be squad players, that was what the communications and the contact will have been about in those discussions, but it seems like that's not going to be the case. It seems like neither of those players want to stick around just to be a bit part player, which is completely understandable. And so as a result, it means that Alex Gilbert and Sammy Silvera will be moving on. Now, Gilbert was pretty much fourth choice midfielder last season under Kim Hellberg, so he'll be moving on. It really just intensifies that need for Middlesbrough to sign a central midfielder, because when you are looking at who we've got, taking Hayden Hackney out of the equation, we've got Aidan Morris, of course, an absolutely brilliant player, someone who's going to be the beating heart of Middlesbrough's team next season as long as we can keep hold of him. And then you've got Law McCabe and Kante as well. So both of those players really haven't sort of impressed really under Kim Hellberg. Law McCabe struggled really. So he spent the first half of last season on loan with Plymouth, came back, didn't get any game time in the second half of the season, which was a shame. And it feels like a real sort of make or break summer for Law McCabe. He was really impressive last summer. I remember going to Ibrox and seeing him play there, and he looked really, really good. And he looked like a player that was going to get a lot of opportunities this season, but that just didn't quite happen for him. He then went out on loan. I think the hope was that he was going to go out and play really regular first team football and really kick on, but that didn't happen for him. So it was a bit of a lost season for Law McCabe, and it feels like a bit of a leap for him to step up and to become a first team regular under Kim Hellberg, particularly given that Kim Hellberg has had the opportunity to take a look at him over the last few months. Abdoulaye Kante, he came in last summer, looked like a really talented player, looked like he was going to get some good game time under Rob Edwards. He was brought in as that sort of midfield destroyer, which Rob Edwards wanted, and he looked like he was going to be a really promising player, but then he sort of started to drift out of the first team plans, and then of course there was a managerial change, and when Kim Hellberg came in, Kante just fell completely out of the picture. He spent the second half of the season on loan with Saint Etienne in France in the second tier. It was expected that it was part of the deal, I should say, that if Saint Etienne got promoted to Ligue 1 in France, that they'd be able to afford a deal to sign Kante on similar terms to what Middlesbrough brought him in from Troy last summer. But Saint Etienne failed to get promoted, so that move seems to be off. It seems like they're not going to be able to sign him on a permanent basis, and it seems like his future is going to be up in the air this summer. It seems like it's not going to be part of Kim Hellberg's plans, but maybe, given the lack of options that we've got in midfield, he may just get an opportunity to impress in pre-season. So it feels like we've spent a substantial amount of time talking about deals that aren't going to be happening for Middlesbrough this summer. But of course, Middlesbrough are going to be going out and they are going to be looking to make a number of new signings to make sure that Kim Hellberg's side are fully prepared for the upcoming season. Now, in terms of the players that Middlesbrough will be targeting this summer, players that we do want to bring in, Middlesbrough aren't going to be messing around, really. Middlesbrough are hoping to sign, according to Teesside Live and according to the Northern Echo, so coming from club sources at the Riverside Stadium, Middlesbrough are going to be looking to sign two midfielders. We spoke about those midfielders just then, probably a replacement for Hayden Hackney and a replacement for Alan Brown at least. We're going to be looking to sign a left back because we need to replace Matt Targett. There's also going to be uncertainty about the future of Alex Bangura. He's someone who could potentially move on this summer. Of course, his injury problems have sort of hampered his ability to establish himself, and so it may be the best thing all round for him to move on. For Middlesbrough to sign at least one left back, someone who can come in, and then maybe Finn Munro will challenge. We want to sign at least one goalkeeper this summer. Now, of course, Joe Wildsmith moved on at the end of his loan deal from West Brom. John McLaughlin moved on as well, so that means that we are likely to be signing 2 players to come in, because of course we've only really got Solbrin that you can class as a first team goalkeeper. We do have Seny Dieng, but it's highly likely that we're going to be looking to move him on this summer, so we are probably going to be looking to sign 2 goalkeepers this summer. I think the question mark there will be whether these goalkeepers coming in are going to be backup goalkeepers. Are they going to be of a similar profile to Wildsmith and McLaughlin, players who are going to play a supporting role to Solbrin and be very much backup players, a second and third choice goalkeeper, or a Middlesbrough going to bring in a more senior goalkeeper, someone who's going to challenge or even replace Solbrin between the sticks. That's going to be the question mark for Middlesbrough's recruitment team. Elsewhere, of course, the need to sign an attacker is abundantly clear for Middlesbrough Football Club. That was our real downfall last season. The inability to put chances away probably cost us promotion, you've got to say. I mean, based on our results in the last couple of months of the season, based on how things went at Wembley Stadium, where we sort of dominated possession but really sort of lacked that cutting edge in the final third, it really was a disappointing way to not get promoted last season, and so that's something that Middlesbrough are clearly going to be looking to rectify this summer. Now, a goal-scoring number 9 is going to be top of that list. We do need someone who's going to be there to put the ball in the back of the net, a natural striker, someone who's going to probably try and get 20 goals a season. That's what we need to really start converting those chances. But it's not just about that. We are going to be looking to sign wide players as well. We haven't really had the kind of service in those areas. I mean, other than Tommy Conway and Morgan Whittaker, 2 players who enjoyed decent seasons last season. Not perfect, but they blew hot and cold a little bit, but they did get a decent number of goals last term. You could look at everyone else and say that, did they offer enough to Middlesbrough's attack, or are we looking to upgrade them? You're looking at people like Sarmiento, who was disappointing when he arrived in January. Sonjay Hansen, who just never really got going over the course of the season. David Strelec, who had his injury problems but didn't really show how highly rated he was last summer, and then Cali Sen, who just fell completely out of the picture. Now, according to the reports, it's saying that Middlesbrough could bring in as many as 4 or 5 new forward players, depending on those outgoings. Now, it seems like we're going to be bringing in at least a couple. You'd probably be thinking that Middlesbrough will look to sign at least 2 or 3 forward players anyway this summer as we look to strengthen. But then, of course, as I said there, with Hansen and Sarmiento and Cali Sen, maybe even David Strelec, these players who could be surplus to requirements. They could be players that Middlesbrough are open to doing a deal for this summer to get them off the books in order to bring in players who are more suited to Kim Hellberg's style of play. It could mean a massive overhaul in the attacking area of the pitch, and perhaps that's what Middlesbrough need, because it just felt like the attacking players weren't doing what Kim Hellberg wanted them to do last season. Yes, they worked hard. Yes, we had a couple of players that you could tell that Kim Hellberg really liked, that really rated, in Morgan Whittaker and Tommy Conway once again. But did the others offer enough to Middlesbrough's attacking line? I'm not so sure. So I think there's definitely going to be work to do there. And there's going to be a lot of new signings coming in to the Riverside Stadium this summer. But as it stands at the moment, nothing is close. But Middlesbrough supporters, do not fear. Be patient. These deals will come. As I said, things will probably start to kick off a little bit as we move into July and as the team come back for pre-season and those plans really start to come into shape. But of course, it's all very, very exciting. This week we've got the fixtures being released for the Carabao Cup and for the Championship. It's been announced that Middlesbrough are going to be playing Celtic in a pre-season friendly on the 18th of July as well. And then, of course, before long we'll have the home and the away Middlesbrough shirts being released as well. And when these things start to come around, it means that the new season is getting a little bit closer. It means that we can start to get a little bit excited rather than being this sort of no man's land that we're in at the moment. So if you have enjoyed this video, please do drop into the comments below. Let me know who you'd like Middlesbrough to sign this summer. And if you have enjoyed it, please do hit like and hit subscribe as well. There's going to be plenty more coming through the summer. And I will catch up with you next time.